He kissed me goodbye this morning, the same way he always does, absent-mindedly, like it's something he checks off a list. A brush of lips, a murmured "have a good day," and then he's gone. I stood at the window a little longer than usual, watching his car pull out of the driveway, wondering how we got here, this strange, polite version of us. The silence between us used to feel comfortable. Now it echoes. We've been married 6 years. Long enough to settle into a rhythm, short enough to remember when we still touched each other with intent. He works late. I stopped asking why. Maybe because I don't want to know. Or maybe because I already do. He doesn't see me. Not in the way that makes your heart race or your skin heat under someone's gaze. Lately, I've stopped looking in the mirror. This weekend trip wasn't my idea, but I didn't fight it. A conference, a resort, a change of scenery. I told myself maybe it would shake something loose. Maybe he'd remember how we used to be. But he canceled last minute. Sent a text, swamped with a client deadline. Go without me. I packed my suitcase without replying. The car ride was quiet. Just music and the occasional voice on the radio. The further I drove, the lighter I felt. No responsibilities, no roles to play. Just me, alone with the hum of tires on asphalt. I arrived at the retreat mid-afternoon, sunlight spilling across the lobby floor in golden sheets. The air smelled like cedar and something sweet. I checked in, smiled at the clerk, and felt invisible. That used to bother me. Lately, it feels like armor. I saw him at dinner, sitting 2 tables away, laughing at something someone said, his hand wrapped casually around a glass of red wine. He was wearing a navy shirt, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, tan skin, relaxed posture. He looked like someone who'd slept well, someone whose life was not unraveling by degrees. He caught me looking. Just a flicker. A half smile. Not presumptuous, curious. Later, I passed him by the fire pit. He nodded politely, not stopping me, not assuming anything. I should have kept walking. I did. But I thought about that smile all the way to my room. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there, staring at the ceiling fan. My body restless, my thoughts drifting toward that stranger's voice, that unspoken invitation in the way he moved. I wanted to feel something. Not just anything wanted. When was the last time I felt that? The next morning he was at the coffee bar. I stood behind him in line. He turned, eyes locking with mine. "Morning," he said, and I felt it deep in my stomach. I said it back, smiling too long. I walked away before I said anything else. But the crack had opened. He found me by the terrace during the afternoon break, holding a coffee I didn't really want. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. I said yes before I even looked up. He sat close but not too close. Just enough that I noticed. His cologne was subtle, clean, not overpowering. The kind that lingers without trying. We talked about nothing first. The weather. The resort. How these kinds of events always feel both necessary and completely pointless. He made me laugh, not with effort, but just by being easy. Comfortable. Present. I couldn't remember the last time I felt seen in a conversation. My husband asks questions to be polite. This man listened. Not to respond, but to understand. And it showed. He asked what I did, what I liked, and when I hesitated, he didn't fill the silence. He just waited. My guard slipped. I told him things I hadn't said out loud in months. Little details. What I used to love before I got tired. The fact that I sleep better alone. How silence in my marriage feels heavier than arguments ever did. His eyes stayed on mine, steady and warm. No judgment. No hurry. "That doesn't sound like the kind of quiet that brings peace," he said. I didn't answer, but I looked away. We kept running into each other. At lunch. In the elevator. Walking along the back path after one of the workshops. He never pushed. Never implied anything. But there was an energy between us. Something unspoken, charged. Every glance felt like a question I was too afraid to answer. That evening, we found ourselves talking again, this time in the lounge. Soft music played somewhere in the background. He asked how long I'd been married. I told him. "Do you love him?" he asked. I looked at my glass and didn't answer. He reached out, brushing a piece of lint from my shoulder. His touch was feather-light, but it stopped my breath. I didn't pull away. That was the moment. The first real choice. His hand hovered a second longer, just barely resting. I felt the air shift. He hesitated, unsure it would fit, his touch, his presence, this moment. And I leaned in, heart pounding, voice low. There's only one way to know for sure. He froze, studying my face for something. Permission, certainty, maybe regret. I gave none. We didn't kiss. Not then. But the space between us was gone. The decision had already been made, long before this moment. We were already on the other side of a line I didn't know I'd been willing to cross. I went back to my room alone that night. Not because I didn't want to stay, but because I needed to know if I'd regret it more before or after. I sat on the edge of the bed, still in my dress, still thinking about the weight of his hand, the warmth of his voice. I didn't feel guilty yet. That came later. The knock on his door wasn't loud. Just 2 quiet taps, the kind that leave room for someone to pretend they didn't hear. But he opened it almost instantly, like he'd been waiting just behind it. Neither of us spoke. His eyes scanned my face, searching for hesitation. I didn't give him any. I stepped inside. It wasn't rushed. There was no fumbling, no frenzy. Just slow movement, unspoken permission. He touched my wrist first, like he was still asking. I didn't answer with words. I moved closer. My breath caught when his fingers brushed my jaw, soft but certain. My skin reacted before my mind had the chance. Clothes came off without drama. No mess, no noise. Just deliberate, practiced stillness. His hands explored with focus, not possession. My body responded before I gave it permission. I didn't think of my husband. I didn't think at all. I felt. His lips were warm, patient. He kissed like someone who knew silence, who understood what it meant to be starved without realizing it. There was no performance here. No pretending. Just tension unraveling inch by inch. My voice broke the stillness only once, a sound I didn't expect, low and real. He looked at me then, searching again, maybe for regret. I kissed him before he could ask. Time blurred. There were no confessions. No explanations. Just skin and breath and unspoken truths. When it was over, we didn't speak right away. He traced a line across my collarbone with a fingertip. I closed my eyes. Guilt hadn't landed yet, but it hovered just outside the door, waiting its turn. I got dressed in silence. He watched, not possessively, just present. Are you okay? He asked. I nodded too quickly. He knew I was lying but didn't press. I think we both understood this wouldn't happen again, not because it meant nothing but because it meant too much. He stood by the door as I left, hands in his pockets. I didn't look back. In the hallway, I paused, catching my breath like I'd run a mile. My phone buzzed, my husband's name on the screen. A simple miss you. I didn't reply. I slipped the phone into my purse and kept walking. Back in my room, I showered. Scrubbed harder than usual. Tried to erase the heat still clinging to my skin. It didn't work. My reflection in the mirror looked the same. That was the strangest part. Nothing had changed on the surface, but everything underneath had shifted. I lay down on the bed, fully dressed. The silence felt heavier now, the kind that follows thunder. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't sad, but because the feeling was too complex for one emotion. I closed my eyes and tried not to picture his hands. Sleep came, but it didn't rest. I woke up before the sun. The room still cloaked in gray light. My body felt heavy, but not from lack of rest. There was a soreness, not physical, but somewhere deeper, like something had been stretched too far inside me. I dressed slowly, careful with every movement, as if the quiet could somehow protect me from what I'd done. On the drive home, I didn't turn on the radio. The silence was safer. My phone buzzed once. I didn't check it. I already knew it wasn't him. He wouldn't reach out. And if it was my husband, I had no answer ready. I rehearsed lies in my head anyway, just in case he asked. He wouldn't. He never does. When I walked through the door, nothing had changed. The living room was tidy. The same scent of lavender detergent hung in the air. A pair of shoes by the door. Normalcy unchanged. He looked up from his laptop when I came in. "Hey," he said, smiling lightly, like he meant it. "Trip okay?" I nodded.
Yeah.
Fine. It came out too flat. He didn't notice. He stood to hug me, arms wrapping around me like obligation. I stood still, unsure how to return it without crumbling. His skin was familiar but lacked warmth. I used to think it was me, that I'd become cold. But now I know the difference. I know what it feels like to be truly wanted. And this isn't it. We ate dinner together. He talked about his project, something about a deadline being pushed. I listened or pretended to. I smiled when I was supposed to. My fork scraped against the plate too loud. He didn't look up. I kept staring at the condensation on my water glass, wondering if he'd notice if I left the table. He didn't. Later, I stood in the shower again, trying to feel clean. But it wasn't dirt I was trying to wash away. It was the version of me who needed someone else to feel alive. The version I thought I buried years ago. She's still here. Just quieter. I laid in bed beside him, both of us facing opposite walls. His breathing was even, already asleep. I reached for my phone. A message blinked on the screen. Not from him. Just a friend. I deleted it anyway. I scrolled through my photos, thumb pausing over one from the retreat. Trees, sunlight, nothing obvious. But I remembered what I'd felt when I took it.
Free.
Wanted.
Seen.
I put the phone down and stared at the ceiling. Everything felt exactly the same. And that's what made it worse. There was no fallout, no confession, no shattered glass. Just the quiet return to a life that didn't ask questions. But inside me, something had broken. Or maybe awakened. I don't know if I'll do it again. I don't know if I'd stop it if I had the chance to rewind. What I do know is this. I can't unfeel what I felt. I can't unknow the difference. And pretending this house still feels like home doesn't make it true. Some truths don't scream. They whisper. And they never stop.